So welcome everyone. Today I have a great honor to speak with Stephen Blake, the founder of the Oldpain2Go method. This talk might change the way you see the pain. At least it did that to me. In a couple last years, my beliefs about many things have changed and turned around. And Stephen, you changed the way I see the pain. Before, I thought the pain is pain and it's created in that area where is some damage and it's inevitable if there is still some physical damage.
Yeah.
So I thought that chronic pain is something you can try to mitigate, but as long as there is damage, there will be some kind of pain. Even thought I by myself have experienced that even when I have great injury, there might not have pain at all the time. And Stephen, last year I trained with you. And now we are talking about what is pain and is old pain necessary. So Stephen, welcome. And what is pain?
Well, we need to clear up first pain that is necessary, which is acute pain. So if you touch something hot or sharp and you didn't get pain, you would do a lot more damage because you continue pressing on it or leave it there. So acute pain is a message to action to get you to do something. So the only purpose of pain is to draw your attention to it consciously, that something's happening that's harming you. And so once we understand that pain is a message. And sometimes that message just needs to be acted on. And when we've acted on the message by moving away from the thing that's sharp or hot, if we've done no damage, there will be no pain anymore. If we've done some damage, there'll be a healing time where there's a little bit of pain, and that pain will go away. But that pain will go away before it's fully healed. So damage isn't a measure of pain. Pain isn't a measure of damage. It's literally this self-protective system, and it's like an alarm bell going off. It doesn't get rid of the burglars and it doesn't stop you doing anything, but you know something's happening and you can do something about it and you can take the best action. So it's all about a message to action. Now, unfortunately, when we've had something for about 12 weeks and it's still painful, it should have healed in that time. And so at that point, it's called chronic pain. And it may as well be called, I don't know what it is, but let's give it a label. And an interesting thing, because even though I've been doing this for 12 years now, I studied my own work. I started to look at new ways of telling people. And a lot of people have like damaged areas and they're not sure if they need an operation or anything. And even people who do, even the surgeons who do operations now are starting to recognize that you can't see pain. You can open somebody up saying, why do they have pain in this ankle? You open it up, you look in there and you might see a bony spur and you might say, well, that might cause pain. But it's a bit like the wind. We know it's windy because it blows trees and things like that, but we can't see it. And because we can't see pain, it doesn't mean it isn't real. It's a very real effect in the same way that we have moods and changes of various things. And it all comes on to us and then we're affected by it. And so when we have a panic attack or we feel all of a sudden frightened, we go into fight or flight. But that's a good thing to actually prepare us for something that typically happens when these circumstances are happening. And it's frightened you and you might need to run or you might need to fight or you might need to freeze or fawn, give in to that person so they're not more aggressive with you. And these are all things we've learned, and pain is no different to any of those. And we see it as a physical thing because it feels very physical. So if we go to the science over the last probably 20 years, has started to recognize that pain, all pain, is manufactured in the brain. So when we have that acute pain, when we touch something hot or sharp, the sensors, imagine it's in my fingers, the sensors in my fingers send a message to my brain. It's not a pain message. Now, unfortunately, having to try and tell people that they can be out of pain, a lot of doctors don't even understand it's not a pain message. And some people even call it pain receptors. But it's called a nociceptor. It means harm. It's a harm receptor. So it notices there's harm. It reports this to the brain. The brain says, taking into account of everything else, what you can see, what you know you're doing, how dangerous you thought it was anyway. It takes all that into account and previous incidences of similar things, and it gives you pain to make you take that action. So by the time it gets to chronic pain, you've actually got no action you can take. And typically the customers that we get are seen by a doctor and told that you've got this chronic pain, you've got it for the rest of your life, and it'll never go away, but you can manage it. And I get really upset by that this is still going on, and doctors, they get trained and they don't really keep up with some angles of medicine things. And pain, typically, doctors train for less than a day on it in their whole training. And when I train somebody, I train them for a day. So they're just as capable as doctors of sorting pain out, but we're only looking at chronic pain. We never try and get rid of acute pain because it's there as a good message and it's a sensible message. But a message that's 12 weeks old and the thing's healed isn't a sensible message anymore. So it's not that it's chronic pain is unnecessary, and I might have been fallen foul of saying that myself, but your body thinks there's a reason that it's keeping you safe. And so the art of Oldpain2Go is finding out what your body thinks that is. And to do that, you could do it through hypnosis or other forms, because we really need to find out from the unconscious mind what's doing that. Now, consciously, we might have a few ideas, but if we can talk to people, we're talking both the conscious and the unconscious at the same time. And if we ask the right things in the right way, the unconscious answers for them. So it might bring forward something they didn't even understand or know. But the more we tell them about how pain works, the more the brain can make that connection of, oh, I think it's to do with this. So we're not fabulous detectives. We actually understand the pattern of pain and why it works, and that there may be some reason the body thinks it's still necessary. But in general, there isn't any need for it to stay. And the only thing I can think of is misdiagnosis. So if you misdiagnose for something, then obviously the pain would need to stay until you diagnose properly so that you can get help to heal it. But everything else, I've never found a reason where somebody's come to me and I've said, oh yeah, you've got a good reason, you need to stay in pain. I've never found that person yet. So it might not work on everybody, but it should work. And it's just really finding that thing. If we find that reason and that person is willing to let go of that reason, it'll go. And we do have stats from this. And we worked on, there's 216 people that filled in feedback forms. And this is from the end of one session. This is not multiple sessions. At the end of one session, 216 people filled in feedback forms. Of those 216 people, 94% of the pain went.
Totally.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, no, 94% of the pain went. So only 6% of the pain was left in those people. Out of those people, 77% left totally pain-free. And the other 23%, you'd think, well, they've got 6% of the pain, but no, it's 4 times. because they're only a quarter of the population, but they've got all the pain. So that's 24%. So their pain reduced by 76%. So most people get totally pain-free, and even the ones that leave with pain, on average, reduces by 76%.
And in one session.
In one session.
Yeah.
And this is what I've designed it for, because there's lots of things out there that can help you manage pain. And I'm sorry, but I'm really upset. There's lots of things that manage pain out there, but they require session after session after session, and usually people have a regular meeting with various practitioners of other sorts that are weekly or fortnightly, and this goes on for years and years and years, and it just makes them feel better, because their understanding is, I've got this for the rest of my life, and the practitioner's understanding is, you've got this for your life, and let's just help you tweak you a bit until it feels a little bit better, so your life's a bit more bearable. And my idea was to get rid of the pain completely, because there's no need for it. And once you have a different attitude to the fact that pain can go, and you're not special if it goes, you're actually special if it doesn't go when you've had a treatment, because there's something we haven't quite found with you. So I don't have second sessions with clients. Usually if I can't find it in the first session, well, then probably I can't help them. But sometimes I pose things to them and I say, I want you to think this over, and I want your unconscious to tell you why it's doing this. And then a few weeks later, they might come back with an answer, and then I say, right, we'll finish the session off. Because usually I've stopped halfway through or part of the way through the session to say, look, we're not getting anywhere and it's not working. So I need your unconscious to reveal this thing, or else it's not going to get fixed. And that might happen a week or 2, 3 weeks down the line. So most people I can help. And I get very upset that people might not hear about this, might spend the rest of their life in pain for no reason at all. And only a few weeks ago on Facebook, there was a young woman who had a ankle amputated because of pain. And there was a video of her, and she was saying, I still get quite a lot of pain, but it's a lot less than it used to be. So here's somebody who's actually had the part of her removed that seemed to be the problem and still got pain. That really shows that wasn't the problem. So she's lost an ankle for no reason at all. And that disgusts me, that people who are far better trained than me, medical professionals, just really aren't seeing things from a sensible point of view, that it isn't necessary.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is why I get so upset, because to get the message out there is really difficult. And only yesterday, I go to a rock choir. I've joined about a year ago. I'm not a particularly good singer, but you can hide that within a choir. And I stand next to somebody and we got chatting, and she'd come to the house once before, and I'd explained what I did. But even though she heard what I did, she didn't fully get it. And last week she told me she was going for an operation on her ankle. And this week she said, oh, they'd cancelled it, even though she prepared for it and everything else. And I said, well, why don't you come to me, and you probably won't need the operation. And she came out with all these reasons and fears of, and she was more frightened of me talking to her and her getting better than she was of having the operation. And sometimes people just want an operation to say, well, it was something physical. I wasn't just making it up. And this is the difficulty. I'm trying to tell people that all pain is made in the brain, but it's not made up.
Yeah,
it's just it's 100% real. Whether you've got pain from cancer or a broken bone, or you've just got chronic pain and nobody knows why you've got it, it's just as real. And this is why we can help people, because otherwise they just stay in the pain, and there is no need for it, or the need is so wrong. Because once we find it out, we say, do you understand why this is still running? and they'll say, oh, I get it now. And then all we say is, well, would you like to let go of it? And they say, yeah. And it's not them agreeing. It's just this switch in the brain that says, I don't need this. Now, because pain is a message, and it's coming out all the time going, oh, you need this level of pain. And it also decides the level you need. So you need this level of pain, you need this level of pain. It's doing that every minute of the day. Sometimes you get distracted and it doesn't bother you. It sort of goes, well, I'll drop it down a bit. You know, you don't need it now because you're busy. And then when you're not busy, it goes, oh, you need this level of pain. So if you think about it, it's just a message. If I told you a message now and you said you understood it and you got it, would I need to come and tell you it every day again? And the answer is no. I mean, if I told you it again tomorrow, you'd say, yeah, you told me that yesterday, Stephen. And if I told you it the day after, you'd say, yeah, you've told me 2 days running now, Stephen. And I'm getting quite annoyed with you now, Stephen. And this is the problem, that people get annoyed from the pain and they get more fearful that they've got it for the rest of their life. And that tightens everything up. And tension is a big factor in pain. And it triggers off more tension and it triggers off the pain. And the pain and the tension triggers off inflammation. And then all the three work together to keep you locked in this loop. And so I found a way, because I've trained in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis, I found a way to talk with people and get their body to sort of start relaxing more, taking away the fear so they're not tightening up. When you tighten up, it restricts the blood flow. So when you restrict the blood flow, it doesn't heal as well. So it just stops the whole process. And it sort of gives you your life back. And this is why I get so emotional, because so many people I see, the change on their life, it's so dramatic. And when you realize that it's not things that I'm not doing anything to them, they're doing it for themselves, but they couldn't have done it without my help. So when I go away from a person I've just helped, I just quite often sob. I mean, the effect on them, the family, everybody that's had to look after and care for them. And they've probably been grumpy because they're in pain, because it makes us snap at people. Life is just so much better without pain. And my own story is that I hurt my back when I was 8. I was helping my father concrete, and I was tough and didn't know how to say no. So when he asked me to lift a barrel of concrete, even though I really struggled to lift it, I did. And I had problems from 8 onwards. At 16, I was talking to a doctor about my bad back. I became a plumber and was doing physical work. By the age of 38, I'd had to given up plumbing because I just couldn't do it anymore. And I'd given it up by a few years. And I was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis and arthritis of the spine. And over the next few years, I had less, I didn't have manual jobs. I did a bit of DIY around the home and things like that. But I didn't have a manual job. And so I got desk jobs, or I got desks where I was traveling a lot in the car. And if I got out of a car after an hour's drive, I'd be 2 minutes straightening up. It was pretty bad. And it wasn't a constant nagging pain every day, but certainly if I did anything too strenuous, it pulled the muscle, and quite a few times I couldn't walk for several weeks. It was pretty horrendous. And so in 2011, I trained to be a hypnotherapist and NLP master practitioner, and came across this technique called N-step, or the 6-step reframe. And I was looking at it the other day, and there's only one part of it that's left. So I changed it immediately when I was taught it, because it just didn't seem right to do. You were supposed to replace any symptoms with 3 smaller symptoms that sort of were slightly less annoying altogether. And I just thought I was stupid. And so it took me down that track of thinking, is there a need for pain? Well, if there's a need for pain, surely you need to keep it. And if there isn't a need for pain, surely it can just go away because it's a message. And so I got better in 2011 from just one session of me doing an altered version of that. I worked on it for several years alongside doing mainly anxiety work. And then 7 years ago, I read that the neural pathways for physical and emotional pain are the same neural pathways. Now, my brain went almost exploded. And it was like everything I've learned from helping people with anxiety, and I also did that in one session, longer sessions, of course. Everything I'd learned from that, I could map across to physical pain. And everything I'd learned from emotional pain, I could map across to the physical pain. So suddenly I became better at both things almost instantly. And so I started running pain clinics, and I did them for free. And I tried to get doctors involved, and they wouldn't send me any clients. They wouldn't lend me a room. They wouldn't promote it. So I promoted it in the local co-op shop, and I got 9 people to the first event, which I promoted for an hour and a half, and got them in there and just worked on them. Went around them all, found out what there was, told them how pain works. I got their stories a bit, so then I just worked on them very quickly, one by one around the group, and 5 left totally pain-free, and the other 4 left with it dramatically reduced. Out of the ones that left pain-free, 3 had arrived on crutches. They all left without needing crutches.
What is that?
Sorry?
What is that?
Crutches.
Yes.
Crutches.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Sticks, things you put
Yeah.
on your arm.
Yeah.
So one woman left them behind, and we ran after her and said, "You forgot your crutches." She said, "I don't need them." I said, "Neither do we." I could have a massive collection of crutches now. And one woman had turned up with pain at a level 8, even though she was on morphine, and the pain still went fully. Her husband had come along, and he said, "Oh, I only came to support her." And I said, "Well, have you got pain?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, why don't we work on you?" And he said, "Well," and I think he was nearly 80. He said, "Well, it won't work on me. I'm old now. I've got, arthritis, and I've got this." I said, "It'll still work, honestly." And he left pain-free. And he didn't even come for a treatment. So it's been a long road developing it. And initially, before I started doing that, before I started officially doing it and doing pain clinics, I was stopping people in the street who looked like they were in pain. And it embarrasses me now that I did that, because I'm just this random stranger that goes up to people and go, "Are you in pain?" And they go, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, have you got 10 minutes? And I would talk them out of it. And I never thought it wouldn't work. And I think this is the beauty of it. I think my faith in it got passed to them. And I think this is the trouble now when I train people up, is that if they don't have faith in it, they don't do it. And if they don't do it, then they think, "Well, I can't do it." And then they go back to the other things they're doing. And so when I train people up, I keep them on board, and I help and encourage them and do everything I can to keep them on board and helping people out of pain, because that's what this is for. So when I read this thing about that the neural pathways are the same for physical and emotional pain, within 6 weeks, I started Oldpain2Go, and I've been teaching it ever since. And I've now trained 1,700 people around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, could you say that pain has purpose to keep us safe?
That's all it's for.
Yeah. And in some cases, in Oldpain, that what our brain or unconscious thought that it keeps us safe, it's not really doing that anymore. So it's not updated into this moment, this day.
Yeah.
And when you do it, it doesn't have to send that pain message out anymore. So it's that simple.
It is that simple, and this is the crying shame of it, that it hasn't been around for thousands of years, because it should have been. I suppose it's because now we know that pain is made in the brain rather than the part of it that feels it. So obviously when we get the message that goes up to the brain that says harm, something's happening, and it evaluates it, it sends pain back down to that area. So we feel it where we need to feel it. Otherwise, we'd bang our elbow and we'd have a headache, and then we'd knock a knee and we'd have a headache, and we'd go, I don't know why I keep getting headaches. Yeah. So it's just this process. Once you understand that process, and then you understand pain is a message. So pain's not the end thing of it. Pain is there to get you to take the action. It's the action the body wants. When you've took the action, it doesn't need to give you the message because you've took the action.
Yeah.
So it's all about action. It's nothing to do with pain. Pain is just the alarm bell going off. Now, can you imagine going to a public building like a library or something, and you need to go and use something there that day, and you get there and the fire alarm bell's going, and you think, oh, I've got to go in. But you notice everybody's sat in the library just reading books. And you go in through the door and you're very wary, and you might be tensed up, which is what we do with pain. You might be tensed up, and you'd say, the librarian would say, can I help you? You'd say, are you still open? Isn't there a fire? Oh no, we had a fire 5 years ago. We've never got the bell fixed. Well, why don't you? We just hadn't thought about it. Yeah, we didn't know you could get it fixed. It's like, well, you could have, because you're not safe now. If you're in pain, in chronic pain, in a particular area, and it's a strong pain, how are you going to feel a new pain in that area that's telling you to take action if it's a lower level than what you're currently in? So old pain will disguise new pain. And the moment I worked that one out, that was the biggie when I first started off, to get people out of pain. And that on its own helps most people out of pain. And then I understood that sometimes there's a story there that's a little bit more sort of, oh, this is why. And that keeps you trapped. So then we've developed the idea of finding these stories and deleting them. And that's why it works so effectively. It's not just me saying it, because there's one of my practitioners was working at a university, and he told the professors there, and he said, I still can't believe it, even though I see it every day now. And he said, but it's incredible. And they got him to do a study on 25 people that was a proper scientific study to see whether a full study should be done. And he got the same results as me, is that 75% of people were left pain-free. So it does work. And now, unfortunately, the university has put out for a £250,000 grant to study Oldpain2Go properly and in depth. But who's going to pay for it? You know, the drug companies aren't going to pay for it, because it's going to do them out of a lot of money.
Yeah.
So nobody's going to fund it, and I haven't got the money to fund it.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe when you explain to people that, do you want to be pain-free? Oh yeah, but they are kind of like, what are you talking about? And some they are not open to hear, because it sounds like it's not possible.
It's also the fact that if you've been in pain for 20 years and constantly complaining about it, and people are sick of hearing you, and you think, but it's real, you know, and you want to prove that you've got a problem so that they can go, oh, well, you weren't making it up. Well, if talking to me makes you better, that doesn't prove that you really were in pain. So you can either hold on to your old beliefs, or you can say, well, look, I'm going to get better, and I'll explain why I was in pain, even though there wasn't a physical property causing it. And this is the thing. We're trying to get people to change something. It's almost akin to getting somebody to change their religion. You know, if you say to somebody who's a very devout particular religion, and you said, oh, but this other one's far better, You wouldn't be able to do it. So the frustration I've had with this, and I was trained in marketing. In fact, I taught marketing, and it's the hardest thing I've ever had to market. And yet you would think, like if they said, oh, there's a new cancer drug out and it works most of the time, bang, everybody will be using it. But I say, I can get you out of pain. And people go, oh, hang about. Don't I need this for some reason? And of course, these medical professionals who are far better trained than I am, far cleverer than I am, are saying you'll always be in pain. And I'm having to fight against that without dragging down doctors, because I do train a lot of doctors, those with open minds that take this on board. I've trained physiotherapists, nurses, even a couple of psychologists, and 3 neurologists I've trained now. So I'm teaching people trained as neurologists how the brain works in relationship to pain, which embarrasses the hell out of me that I do that. That these people, very intelligent people, are listening to me and going, oh, I didn't know that, Stephen.
I think, Stephen, people might have thinking that, oh my God, if I wouldn't have that pain I used to have, I could hurt myself.
Yes. There is a thing, and this happened recently. There was a guy, he only had a ankle pain, which should have been easy for me to remove. And he came along here and had a live session. And he kept throwing questions in. There was doubting questions all the way through it. And eventually, I sort of like, where are we going with this? And I recognized that what it was, he'd got arthritis in his ankle. And he thought that if he got better from it, he'd use it more and then therefore wear it out. And I said, well, when do you want to use it? Do you want to spend your whole life not using it, just in case you might want to use it when you're 99? Or do you want to use it now until it wears it out? Because it doesn't wear it out any more than any other thing. Just because there's pain there, it doesn't mean it's wearing out. In fact, if you go on the Arthritis Society website, they talk about you need to exercise through the pain. Now, which throws up another angle, because recently, because I'm always studying my own work, which is really weird, but I want to know how to explain it more simply. And I started to find out that there are some methods out there that are working on helping people not sometimes fully get rid of the pain, but quite often get it right down. Things like CBT for pain, and there's a few other techniques out there. But they all work on the basis that it's going to take about 2 years. It might be quicker than that, it might not. There's Dr. Sarno's work about journaling so that you work out when you're stressed and not. And that has helped people instantly from reading his work, but sometimes a few years. And so there's a lot of techniques out there that work on the basis that because pain is about fear, with fear we're harming ourselves, with fear we're doing damage, with fear moving, that if we, to help people, first of all, we've got to educate them that pain is made in the brain, not in the part. And they say that's going to take a long time. Well, 10 minutes usually. And then they want people to work out how they can feel safe and journal and do things. And then if they exercise, they want them to push through the pain. But the pain's telling you not to push through it. And so that's very difficult. And although some people get help by this, it's very difficult. So I took that model and I've redrawn it. So if anybody looks at my website, Oldpain2Go.com, they'll see 2 models. One that you can get off the website, any website, if you just Google it, a pain diagram. And I made my own. And it says, what if we remove the pain first? Instead of you getting exercise through the pain, trying to get over your depression because you're in pain, why don't we remove the pain first and see what's left? And if you take away the pain first, now you can exercise. And you'll get pain just the same as you would if you don't normally exercise, and then you start exercising. But it will feel different because it comes on a bit slowly and it goes, I've done too much for the day. So you won't overdo things just because you're better now. You'll actually know, and the body can tell you because it's not disguised by this incredible amount of pain. So you get that out of the way. You can now exercise. You feel better about yourself. You're not worried, so you feel more safe. So that reduces the pain and the tension and everything else. And if you keep going around the loop, it just solves all the problems. And so most of the medical scientists aren't aware you can instantly get people out of pain, but they're the ones that told me that it's a message. If it's a message, it can be turned off. And if you turn a message off, it's instant.
And that when you turn that message off, it doesn't numb the area.
Okay, and that's a very good point to mention. Because if you numb an area, and this is what's been happening with hypnotherapy for God knows how many years, hundreds of years probably, that we're taught to numb an area. And if you numb an area, that's not safe because now it's not got the signal when danger is there. You know, if you totally numbed an area and then somebody stabbed you there, you wouldn't know about it. So it's all right numbing an area with hypnosis or any other technique that numbs it as a temporary measure for an operation, a tooth extraction or something like that. It's not for life. And I've got a very good story example of it. There was a guy that came on my training course. And when he comes in, he looks a bit awkward and sits down. And I said, are you all right? He said, oh, I'm not in any pain, Stephen. I said, but what's wrong? He said, well, I had a pain in my groin area 25 years ago, and I'm a hypnotherapist, so I numbed it. And I said, you're numb in the groin area? You've been numb for 25 years? He said, yes. He said, could you do anything, Stephen? Could you take away the numbness, but still get rid of the pain? I said, yeah. And about 10 minutes later, he had feeling back in his groin for the first time in 25 years. And this is somebody who knew about pain control and things. So I mean, it's took me 12 years of working on this to get where I am now, to understand it in depth like I do. And also, initially, I wasn't looking at other people's work, so I didn't want to taint my own work with, oh, perhaps I ought to have a bit of that and a bit of this and a bit of that. So I've always gone back to basics of how pain actually works. And I spent 12 years full time. I mean, and I don't do 40-hour weeks. I probably do 60-hour weeks. So that's a lot of study. So I used to get a lot of stick. Well, you're not a doctor. And I'd go, well, yeah, but there's no doctor on the planet that has been 12 years full time getting people out of pain.
Yeah. So Stephen, could you tell a little bit how, in your opinion, painkillers are working?
Okay. Painkillers are okay with acute pain because it's giving you that message, you've got this damage, and you're saying, okay, yes, but I've been to the hospital, you know, and I can't do any more about it, and I'm waiting for an operation or whatever. And painkillers are appropriate then. So the painkiller works in a way that it knows that there's three different sorts in my limited knowledge of medication. There's painkillers that stop the message from the reception of it getting to the brain at full volume. So when it calculates what level of pain you need, it misunderstands it and lowers it because it sees the risk as lower. So it goes, okay, I can lower the pain now. So that's one sort. There's another sort that affects it when the brain's made the calculation and it says you need an 8 and it lowers it to a 4. That's not a good idea. Yeah. Because imagine you've shattered your knee. You know, imagine I'm talking to you as we get to the edge of the road. I stick my knee out to cross the road. A lorry hits it, shatters my knee. Yeah. Now, instantly, pain is always 10 out of 10 instantly when you do something. And then there's the realization of what you've done, and then the brain calculates the actual pain. Yeah. And that's all done in a split second or two. And then if I was now to put my leg down, I'd probably push the bone and put weight on it. The bones would probably come through the skin and do a lot more damage. So I'll have a 10 initially, but then it would be about an 8 because it needs to have 2 spare to say, don't do that. Don't put weight on it. It can't do that if it's already a 10. It can't make it a 12. Yeah. So it changes the scale and it suddenly goes into, okay, you need to do this. Now, if somebody came along and while I'm hopping on one leg and went, I'll give you some morphine, and the pain went away or went down to a 4, I would now put weight on that leg. And I'd do all the damage that it didn't want me to do. So when it tries to turn the pain down, the brain can go, whoa, just a minute. You're not getting the message I'm trying to give you. And it turns it up to a 15 to arrive at an 8. Yeah. So the brain's really clever. And the calculation to give you pain is incredibly complex. But we don't have to worry about the complexity of it because your brain does it. Yeah. Like we don't have to worry how a calculator works, but we can get an answer on it. Yeah. And I think it's very similar to catching a ball. Somebody throws a ball at you and you know where to put your hand and what timing to do of it. And you're allowing for the wind and how fast you think they've thrown it and if they've put a spin on it and all sorts of things, all done in a split second. And the pain message is just the same. It takes all these things into account and then gives you this pain message. And it's in acute pain, it's spot on usually. The only time it gets fooled is if you get like a cut above your eye and it bleeds a lot, but you haven't done a lot of damage, but it bleeds and it comes in your eyes and it goes all over your shirt. Next thing you know, you think you're going to die because you've lost all this blood. And then it puts the pain level up because you've got to die. So you ought to have a lot of pain. But as soon as you wash it, the pain goes down because you go, oh, it's just a little cut. And then you reassure it you're not going to die, so it doesn't give you as much pain. So it's constantly changing this pain. But once it gets to to chronic pain, it's sort of made up its mind that you need this. And then over the years, it actually increases slightly for the rest of your life. And it's such a gradual increase that you wouldn't know unless you saw a video of you when you were 4 years ago and you said, oh, it's level 4. And you'd go, oh, well, it's a level 6 now. And crikey, I didn't realize it had crept up. And they talk about, or the scientists talk about, the fact that when we have a neural pathway, we develop it by thinking about it more. So if we've got pain, we developed a pain pathway in the brain that says you need this pain, you need this pain, you need this pain. And it's a bit like walking down your garden. The bit where you walk regularly wears all the grass out, and the other bits, it's a bit softer. So there's this sort of fine pathway it makes. Now, it doesn't increase each year, and they talk about central sensitization. And here's my explanation of it. It's simply this. If you're in pain for long enough, but you can't do anything about it, you can't move differently or whatever to stop it hurting you, the brain keeps saying, do something. And you keep saying, I can't. Now, if I was to ask you to do something and you said, I can't, Stephen, I'd say, now do it. And every time I said it, I would get louder because you're not taking any notice of me. And that's all it is. The brain is saying, please, come on, take some action. And you're going, but I can't. It goes, yes, you can take some action. Yeah. And this is the conversation we have with the person is, well, you can't take any action, but what does it think you should do? And it falls quite often into something like the person will have all these aches and pains. They've probably had them on and off through their life and things, but it comes to a head. And when you talk to them, they're in a job they absolutely hate and under incredible pressure. And all their aches and pains are to get them to change the job. And they have all these reasons they can't, like I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got all these things to pay. And that goes in there. So the brain's working out all these things, change your job, and you're virtually saying, well, I would, but I can't earn that money elsewhere and all that. And it goes, this is your health, this is your life. And if you're not that bothered, I'm going to turn the pain up until you are bothered. Yeah. So it forces you into an action, but it's not an action about moving or something. It's about an action of not doing something you absolutely hate for the rest of your damn life.
Yeah. And there comes to my mind that Stephen, you have used that Oldpain2Go even to fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue.
Yeah, it's a good topic to get on to because I see, I mean, when people say, or I say, yeah, you're in pain, but what have you got? And they say, oh, it's my spine or it's this. Can you work on that? Well, it works the same on everything. Now, if there's initially a physical cause for it, you know, you broke your bone or whatever, then it becomes a little bit more obvious what it's about. Now, the clients that are different from everybody else, just by a small amount of how we help them, are people with fibro, ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, those three have a little special grouping for me because I did have one of those illnesses myself because I collapsed and I was in bed for about 3 months with no energy whatsoever. And in even going from my bed to the toilet, which was probably 10 foot away, wore me out for 3 more hours. So I just couldn't even get my head off the pillow. So I understood this. And my first ever client from therapy had ME. And I was only selling a diet product at the time. I wasn't working as a therapist. And when she told me that it took 40 hours to do 2 hours work a week that she was paid for, because she had to keep going off for sleep and things, that I looked into this. And I worked out what it was that everybody in common in those three categories, and I call it the BOSS range of illnesses, and it stands for burnout, overload, safety system. Every single person who's got one of those three, and hopefully you've got some viewing who will recognize this, they overdo things. They're constantly on the go in the head or in the body or both. I'm not talking managing directors. I'm talking because it's a lot of females more than men. Typically, a mum has to do so many different things and constantly. It's not an 8-hour day. And then there's, oh, when I get home, I've got to do this. And they're probably full-time working as well. When I get home, I've got to do this, and I've got to cook the tea, and I've got to do this, and then I've got to run the kids there, and I've got to do this and that. And they don't really have much time for themselves. And they tend to be people pleasers. They're very nice people. They look after everybody else far more than they should do. And that puts even more pressure on them because now they get volunteered to do things. Oh, she'll do it for you. She's a nice person. And so they got random strangers they end up doing things for. And inside, there's a little bit of, I'm ill and I'm struggling to do my own work. And I've got all these other people to do. And they do like pleasing people. So these are really the salt of the earth, nice people. And they just get locked into overdoing things all the time. Now, your body can only stand so much. Now, you can learn to do a marathon. It probably takes a year to train to run 26 miles. And you'll do it, and it's hard work. And when you finish for the day, you won't run one the next day. But people who are driven like this, they overdo life day after day after day. Now, if I was to go in my garden and dig it today, tonight I would feel tired and I would ache. That would be a natural process of a normal human being. Now, these people, if when they started out, first time they dug a garden, they would get tired and ache, and the next day they would do it again. And they'd want to get a certain amount done, so they'd probably take an extra hour to do it because now they're tired and aching. And if they did it again the next day, it'd probably take even longer. Or they get frustrated. And then when they get frustrated, we get uptight. So they've been under stress virtually all of their life, because you tend to learn people pleasing when you're younger. And that's a whole different topic. But they've probably been like this their whole life. And at some point it started affecting them. Initially, not much, then more and more and more. And then the brain starts to say, if you carry on like this, you will die of a heart attack or a stroke. And I'm not going to let that happen. And so it increases this pain and the fatigue. And the only difference between those people is the diagnosis. Some people have more pain than fatigue, and they go into a category just by the doctor. Sometimes they'll get diagnosed with all three or 2 out of 3. But it's just a category that the doctor uses. And when you get categorized with that, the doctor is actually saying, I haven't a clue, but here's a good label for it. Yeah. Now, if you are a driven person, it's no good me saying, slow down. People have told you that all your life. But once you realize that the illnesses, and you don't just get one illness, you get illnesses, because the more you wear out the body, the more you're on fight or flight chemicals all the time, the more you're depleting your immune system. And then other illnesses get you. So it's not that you've got this as well and this as well and this as well. You've got this as well because your immune system's getting depleted. And if you weren't doing that level of work, it wouldn't happen. So you're actually suffering a consequence of your own actions. Now, that might sound terrible. I'm blaming them for their own illness. But I'm telling you, now that you understand you can only do so much in a day, if you now agree to listen to your body instead of ignoring it, it can let you free from your illness. And this can happen instantly. And a lot of your other symptoms from the immune system being depleted can go away at the same time, or will happen over the next few months, because once you're not stressing every day, you won't be in fight or flight. The right chemicals will go around your body and start healing you. And if you're tense, you cut down the blood flow to particular areas. So when you're tense and you cut down the blood flow, it doesn't provide the healing that we need and the wear and tear and everything else. At the moment you get rid of this stress and you do things, now I'm not asking you to slow down, I'm asking you to speed up from where you are now. And when I first discovered how this worked, I was saying to people, oh, you've got to slow down. And I didn't understand the mental process of that. We can't take away from people what is part of their very being. So now I've said to people, look, I'm going to speed you up from where you are now, but you have to agree to listen to your body from now on. And it stops being illness, and you'll understand it's the consequence. And I know the consequences of digging the garden. Yeah. Normal human, I haven't got an illness. I know the consequences of it. And now I can do that, and I can ache a bit and quite enjoy that I've pushed myself. And they can go back to that. But they've got to provide this safe space to the brain that says it's all right. Because at the moment, you see, if I just said to people, oh, I'll make you better, and I touched their head and they got better, they'd overdo things straight away. So, but once the brain's got this assurance that they're not going to go back to going crazy over things, and I have to have a chat with them about, first of all, saying no to people, learning about assertion so that we can say no nicely. Because at the moment, I know they can't say no because their body does it for them. So we get all these people making requests of us, and we say, yes, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And we enjoy doing it. And then at some point we go, I'd love to help you, but I'm really ill today and I can't do it. And your body's making you ill. You're not wanting yourself to be ill. This isn't in your head. You're not making it up. But you can recover from it. And it's instant usually. And this is the beauty of the work I do is just fabulous.
And when you understand it, your body doesn't have to react anymore.
Okay, and this is it. You know, it's a difference between if you rubbed your leg now, yeah, just rub your leg. Yeah. Now imagine you go somewhere in public and you're on a smelly underground train and the bloke next to you rubs your leg with the same pressure.
Yeah.
It's an entirely different experience. Yeah. So the brain is working out the stimulation and it's going, is this threat? Is this dangerous? It's not the touch, it's not the pressure, it's not anything else. It's literally, is this going to harm me? If it's going to harm me, I'm going to give you pain because I want you to react to this and get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, I think this is really great method and it's really worth of trying, and it creates like it can change people's life in some
Absolutely.
area. And Stephen, where can people find you?
Okay. You can find me and anybody else I've trained if they put themselves on the map at oldpain2go.com. And you go on there and it explains, and you'll see diagrams of what I've talked about today and things. And all the way down that first page, it has find a practitioner. If you click on that, you'll go to a map and you'll have your most local practitioner. Now, I've trained 1,700 people up, but people aren't doing this full time. I'm not training people who are just OldPain2Go practitioners. They do other work as well. So when I invited them to come on the map for free, there are about 250, which are probably the more active people that are on the map. So that's where you'd find out who's local to you. We can do this over the internet. We can do this over Zoom. I prefer to be live with people because it's a bit more intimate, but you can do this as long as you can clearly see their face and their expressions. So I do this all the time over Zoom now.
Yeah, and you can find some clients' feedback videos there, and
Oh,
there
yeah.
are many.
Well, the point was that when you go to a website and it's got like 4 feedbacks in written form and it goes, Mrs. A from Southampton, you think, okay, 4 people have said you were good. So what we've done is I've said to people, if you've got somebody out of pain, just pull the camera out and say, are you all right if I video your feedback? Because it's instant. And usually they say, oh, I'm shocked. This is crazy. I don't know. And they'll say that they were in X amount of pain and they're now in a lot lower or mainly 0. And we've got 150 of those videos. And they are professionally recorded, so you can see it's just a human just saying what they actually feel. And I thought that was of great value because when people say, oh, it can't be done, or, who are you to do this or whatever, well, look, there's 150 videos, not just from people I've worked on, but people I've trained who've worked on. And I know we need to finish, but the final bit is that when I checked the stats of people who had worked on somebody, those 216 people, I worked on about half of them. Most of them had fibromyalgia. And when I looked at the other half who'd been worked on by a trainee who trained that day, so their first ever client, they're only 6% less effective than I am. This proves that the methodology work. It's not just me. I'm not a guru, or I don't have a status that helps. It's literally 6% difference between somebody who's trained that day and me.
You know, Stephen, I had same kind of experience when I trained with you, and after that, it wasn't in that same exact day, but my first client, I just suddenly asked someone, I wasn't prepared at all, that
Yeah.
she was in pain, and I was asking, do you want to be pain-free? And do you have like 15 minutes? And she said yes. And we did that, and I did that for my first time, and it was amazing. And every time I see her, she's hugging me and saying, I can't
I get
believe
so
it.
many hugs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just the most beautiful thing, and to do the work as well is just so rewarding. It's just I couldn't have a better life. I just see people every day that I've helped or help people every day, and then I see what my practitioners are doing, and I can't ever get down. If I get down, I would look at the practitioners page and just read something that somebody else has done, and only because I gave them that information. And it just fills me with joy every day. It's fabulous.
So thank you, Stephen, very much. And if you feel interested, please go to check that page and find out if that's for you.